Daddy. One word. That is all it took to destroy me. I was standing outside my building on a freezing Tuesday morning in January when a homeless child ran toward me. She could not have been older than 3. Her clothes were stained and torn. Her hair was matted. She had no gloves, no scarf, no one watching over her. She wrapped her tiny arms around my leg and looked up at me with eyes I recognized. My eyes. I built a 52-story glass tower in the center of Chicago. I crushed competitors without losing a minute of sleep. I made decisions that moved billions across borders. Entire industries bent when I spoke. But in that moment, I could not breathe. I could not think. I could not move, because the past I buried had just grabbed hold of me and would not let go. If you are new here, welcome. If you are coming back, I appreciate you. Go ahead and subscribe if you have not already. Leave a like on this video and drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from right now. Now let me ask you this. What would you do if the life you abandoned came back begging at your feet? Before I tell you what happened after that moment on the sidewalk, you need to know how I became the kind of man who could walk away from his own blood. I warn you now, I am not the hero of this story. Not yet. Let me take you back to the beginning of that day. 7:43 in the morning. I was late. I had not been late in 4 years. My life operated on a schedule that most military operations would envy. Meetings began when I entered the room. Flights departed when I boarded. The world arranged itself around my time. But that morning, my alarm had failed, or I had slept through it. I could not remember which. Either way, 7 minutes behind schedule felt like chaos. My driver Marcus cut through downtown Chicago, weaving past delivery trucks and yellow cabs. Outside the tinted windows, the city moved in its usual rhythm. Steam rising from grates. Commuters hunched against the January cold, the ordinary machinery of a Tuesday morning. Marcus slowed the car as we approached the Cresswell Tower. 52 stories of glass and steel. My name was not on the building, but everyone who mattered knew it belonged to me. Sir, Marcus glanced at the rearview mirror. His voice carried hesitation. Might want to use the rear entrance this morning. I looked up from my phone. Why? He nodded toward the front of the building. Homeless situation. Woman and a kid. Security called it in 20 minutes ago. They are working on it. I leaned toward the window. She was sitting against the stone foundation, just left of the main entrance. A woman in a coat that had seen too many winters. The fabric was torn at the shoulder, patched with duct tape. Her head was bowed, face hidden beneath a wool cap pulled low. Beside her, a small child sat wrapped in a faded sleeping bag. Pink, dirty, the kind of thing you would find abandoned behind a thrift store. My jaw tightened. Pull up front, I said. Sir, I really think... Front entrance, Marcus. The car eased to a stop. I had seen homeless people outside my building before. Chicago winters pushed them toward any structure that blocked the wind. My security team handled these situations with efficiency and discretion. A polite request to relocate, a referral to a shelter, sometimes a $20 bill to speed the process along. I did not get involved. Guilt was an inefficient emotion. It solved nothing. It helped no one. It only slowed you down. I stepped out of the car. The cold hit me immediately, sharp and bitter. My breath formed small clouds in the frozen air. 12 steps to the revolving door. I had counted them once, years ago, during a particularly boring phone call. I started walking. Do not look. Do not engage. Security will handle it. 8 steps. The woman did not move. She kept her head down, arms wrapped around herself. 6 steps. The child shifted inside the sleeping bag. 4 steps. The child looked up. Green eyes. Not ordinary green. Not hazel. Not grey-green or blue-green. The exact green I saw in my bathroom mirror every morning. My mother's eyes. My eyes. Then she did something I was not prepared for. She scrambled out of that sleeping bag and ran toward me. Her little legs moved fast, unsteady on the icy pavement. Before I could react, She wrapped her arms around my leg and held on like I was the last solid thing in the world. And she looked up at me and said one word. "Daddy." I stopped breathing. The woman in the torn coat lifted her head. Our eyes met. Ellery. 7 years had passed, but I would recognize that face anywhere. The red hair was shorter now, tangled and unwashed. Her cheeks were hollow. Dark circles hung beneath her eyes. She looked like she had not slept in weeks. But it was her, and she was looking at me with an expression I could not read. Fear, anger, something else beneath it all. The little girl tightened her grip on my leg. "Daddy, Mommy said you would come. She said you would find us." My heart slammed against my ribs. I looked at the child, then at Ellery, then back at the child, 3 years old, maybe a little older. Green eyes, my jawline, my stubborn shoulders. The math hit me like a freight train. This was my daughter, and I had not known she existed. To understand how I ended up frozen on that sidewalk, you need to know who I was before the glass tower, before the empire, before I became the kind of man who could walk away from the woman he loved. 7 years ago, I was nobody, 27 years old, running a tech startup that was bleeding money faster than I could raise it. My apartment was a studio in Pilsen with a radiator that only worked when it felt like it. My car had 200,000 miles on it and a check engine light that had been glowing for 3 years. I was not Corbin Mathers, real estate titan. I was just Corbin, broke, exhausted, 1 bad month away from moving back in with my mother. And then I met Ellery Vance. It was 2 in the morning at a 24-hour laundromat on 18th Street. I was there because my washing machine had finally died, and I could not afford to replace it. She was there because her apartment building had flooded and the basement laundry room was underwater. She was folding fitted sheets. Her lips were moving silently to music playing through her earbuds, red hair escaping a messy braid. A coffee cup balanced on the dryer beside her. I watched her wrestle with a fitted sheet for 30 seconds before I walked over. "You need help with that?" She pulled out one earbud and looked at me, sized me up, decided I was not a threat. "You know how to fold a fitted sheet?" My mother taught me. "Then yes, please. These things are my enemy." We folded the sheet together. Our hands touched twice. I pretended not to notice. She pretended not to notice me pretending. "I am Ellery," she said. "Corbin," she raised an eyebrow. "Corbin, that is very corporate." My father picked it. He had high hopes. "Did you meet them? The Hopes?" Nobody had ever asked me that before. Not like that. Not with genuine curiosity instead of judgment. "Not yet," I said. "Still working on it." She smiled. "Good answer." But we talked until sunrise. About everything. About nothing. About the things you only tell strangers at 2 in the morning because you know you will never see them again. Except, I did see her again. We went to breakfast at a diner neither of us could afford. Pancakes and burnt coffee, and the kind of conversation that made 3 hours feel like 30 minutes. I walked her home. She lived 6 blocks from the laundromat in a building that looked like it might collapse if someone sneezed too hard. We stood on the sidewalk outside her door. "I should warn you," I said. "I am basically a failure. My company is dying. I have $87 in my checking account. I am not a good investment." She straightened my collar. Her fingers brushed my neck. "I am not looking for an investment," she said. "I am looking for someone who will still be interesting at 80. I kissed her in the thin grey Chicago morning light. Nothing romantic about the setting. A cracked sidewalk, a dumpster overflowing nearby, the smell of exhaust from a passing bus. Everything romantic about the moment. We were inseparable after that. 2 years of fighting about money and making up in ways that made fighting worth it. 2 years of her working double shifts at the hospice center and me chasing investors who never called back. 2 years of learning each other's damage and loving each other anyway. She had grown up in foster care. 11 different homes before she aged out at 18. Every reason in the world to be bitter. Instead, She was the most genuinely kind person I had ever met. I asked her once how she stayed so soft when the world had been so hard. "Because hard makes more hard," she said. "Someone has to break the cycle." I proposed with a bread bag twist tie. We were sitting on her fire escape, watching the sun go down over the neighborhood, and I did not have a ring. I did not have anything except the absolute certainty that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with this woman. She looked at the twist tie on her finger and laughed until she cried. "Yes," she said. "Obviously, yes." That was the happiest I have ever been. Then my father died, and everything changed. My father was a man named Augustin Cresswell. He built one of the largest real estate empires in the Midwest: office towers, shopping centers, luxury developments. His name was on buildings across 6 states. He was also cold, calculating, and incapable of love. He disowned me when I was 19. I had dropped out of his business program to pursue my own startup. He called me ungrateful. He called me a fool. He said I was throwing away everything he had built for me. We did not speak for 8 years. Then he died. Heart attack. Alone. In his penthouse. His housekeeper found him 3 days later. The lawyers called me 2 weeks after the funeral. I had not attended. Neither had anyone else, apparently. My father left me everything. Not because he loved me. Not because he forgave me. His pride would not allow the Cresswell empire to pass to strangers. Blood mattered more than feelings, even blood he had spent 8 years pretending did not exist. There were conditions, of course. I had to take control of the company within 3 years, or the entire estate would be liquidated and donated to charity. His final test. His way of reaching out from the grave to see if I was worthy. Ellery was supportive. "Take everything he built and make it something better," she said. "Prove him wrong about who you are." We moved to New York. The company headquarters were there, and the board was already circling like sharks. If I did not establish dominance immediately, they would tear the empire apart and sell it for scraps. Ellery found work at a non-profit clinic in the Bronx, an hour commute each way on the subway. She took the job because those patients needed her. She never complained about the distance. I told myself I would make it up to her. I told myself a lot of things. The first year was war. The board tested me constantly. They leaked false information to the press. They tried to install their own people in key positions. One of them orchestrated a hostile takeover attempt using a shell company traced back to a former Cresswell executive. I survived by becoming harder, colder, more ruthless than my father ever was. I learned to weaponize silence. I learned to leverage fear. I learned to read hidden agendas in handshakes and identify enemies by the way they smiled. I was never home. "It is temporary," I told Ellery. "Once I stabilize the company, things will get better." "You said that 3 months ago." "I know. I am sorry. Just a little more time." She watched me transform. I did not see it happening, but she did. Every late night, every cancelled dinner, every phone call I took in the middle of conversations. "It feels like you are doing it for him," she said one night. We were standing in our kitchen at midnight. I had just gotten home. She had been waiting up. "For the ghost of a man who never loved you, trying to earn approval he can never give." "That is not true." "Then come to bed, right now. Leave the phone in the kitchen and come to bed." I looked at my phone. 3 unread messages. A deal in Tokyo that needed my attention. "I just need to handle this one thing." She nodded slowly. Something in her eyes shifted. Something I did not recognize until much later. She was starting to give up. The fights got worse. The silences between them got longer. I was becoming someone she did not recognize. Someone I did not recognize. But I kept going. Because stopping meant admitting my father was right. Stopping meant I was not strong enough. Stopping meant everything I had sacrificed was for nothing. Then Ellery got sick. It started with fatigue. She was tired all the time. I told her to take a few days off. She said she could not afford to. Then, the bruising. Purple marks appearing on her arms and legs, without explanation. Then a nosebleed that would not stop. She called me from the emergency room. "The doctors found something in my blood work," she said. "They want to run more tests. I am scared, Corbin. I am really scared." I remember exactly where I was when she called. 34th floor conference room. 12 executives around a mahogany table. $400 million on the line. An acquisition 18 months in the making. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. Ellery. She never called during meetings. She knew better. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway. "The doctors found something in my blood work," she said. Her voice was shaking. "They want to run more tests. I am scared, Corbin. I am really scared." I stood up straighter. Every instinct in my body told me to leave, to get in a car and go to her, to be the man she needed. "I am coming," I said. "Which hospital?" She told me. I walked back into the conference room. "Meeting is adjourned," I said. "We will reconvene tomorrow." 12 faces stared at me in disbelief. My COO, a man named Fletcher, followed me into the hallway. "You cannot leave now," he said. "The other side will walk. You know how long we have been positioning this deal. My wife needs me. She is not your wife yet, and $400 million is $400 million. I stood on the sidewalk outside the building, phone in one hand, car keys in the other. The hospital was 20 minutes away. The meeting was right behind me. I thought about Ellery in a hospital bed, scared, alone. I thought about the deal, 18 months of work, the board finally starting to respect me. Everything I had sacrificed. I made a choice. I went back inside. The deal closed 3 days later. By then, Ellery had been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. Serious, but manageable, with proper treatment and support. Support I was not providing. I was in Sao Paulo when she started her first round of treatment. Tokyo when her symptoms flared. London when she had to cut her hours at the clinic because she could not stand for a full shift anymore. I sent flowers. I sent money. I sent apologies via text message at 3 in the morning from hotel rooms that all looked the same. I sent everything except myself. 2 weeks after her diagnosis, she called me. "Come home," she said. "Right now, me or the Empire, I need to know." I was standing on a balcony in Singapore. The city glittered beneath me like a circuit board. Beautiful, distant, cold. "I need more time," I said. The line went silent for a long moment. "Goodbye, Corbin." The call ended. When I got back to New York 3 days later, the apartment was half empty. Her clothes were gone. Her books were gone. The photograph of us at the laundromat was gone. She had left one thing behind. A note, pinned to the blue shirt hanging in my closet. The shirt I was wearing the night we met. "Keep it. Remember who you were." I stood there holding that note for a long time. Then, I put it in a drawer, poured myself a drink, and went back to work. That was 7 years ago. I did not know she was pregnant when she left. If I had known, would it have changed anything? I wish I could tell you yes, but I do not know if that is true. And that is the part that haunts me most. If this story is hitting you somewhere deep right now, do me a favor. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in my position. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button. We are just getting started. 7 years. That is how long I spent building the fortress around my heart. 7 years of hostile takeovers and midnight negotiations. 7 years of penthouse apartments and first-class flights to cities whose names blurred together. 7 years of women who understood the arrangement. Dinner at 8. Breakfast at 7. No questions about the past. No expectations about the future. I became exactly what my father always wanted me to be. Cold, calculated, untouchable. The empire grew. The man inside it shrank. And I told myself that was the cost of greatness. But this morning, a child had grabbed my leg and called me Daddy. Now I was standing in my 52nd floor office, staring at the Chicago skyline, and I could not breathe. The city stretched beneath me like a kingdom, glass and steel and concrete. Millions of lives moving through streets I could see but never touch. I had built all of this, And right now, none of it mattered. My hands were shaking. I did not shake. I had fired executives without blinking. I had walked away from deals worth hundreds of millions without a second thought. I had buried my father with dry eyes. But a 3-year-old girl had looked at me like I was supposed to save her, and now my hands would not stop shaking. I picked up my phone and called Davidson, Chief of Security, former FBI, the kind of man who could find anyone, anywhere, and keep his mouth shut about it. "I need information on the woman outside the building this morning," I said. "The one with the child." Davidson did not ask why. He never asked why. Police involvement? No police, no publicity, just information, fast. How fast? "I need it in an hour." A pause. "I will have it in 40 minutes. The line went dead. I stood at the window and watched the city move. Somewhere down there, Ellery was still sitting against my building with our daughter. Security had orders not to move her. I had made sure of that before I came upstairs. Davidson delivered the file in 37 minutes. I read it standing at my desk. Name: Ellery Marguerite Vance. My chest tightened at the name. Last known address: vacated 18 months ago. Eviction. Employment history: nursing positions at 3 different clinics. Gap of 2 years. Medical leave. No employment in the past 14 months. Daughter: Rowan Vance. Age 3 years, 7 months. No father listed on birth certificate. I did the math. 3 years, 7 months. I counted backward. Once, twice, 3 times. Conception, mid-September. 7 years ago, 2 weeks before she left. The night before her final phone call. The night we had fought about Tokyo. She had cried. I had held her. We had made up the only way we knew how. Then, I had boarded a plane. Then she had called and said, "Come home." Then I had said, "I need more time." She was pregnant. When she asked me to come home, she was pregnant. When she packed her bags and left my apartment, she was pregnant. When she wrote that note on my blue shirt, she was carrying my child. And she never told me. Rage hit me first. How dare she keep this from me? How dare she make that decision without me? I had a right to know. I had a right to be there. She had stolen something from me. She had... Then shame replaced it. What would I have done if she had told me? I thought about the man I was 7 years ago. The man who chose a $400 million deal over a hospital room. The man who said I need more time to a woman begging him to come home. Would that man have changed a diaper at 3 in the morning? Would that man have cancelled a board meeting for a pediatrician appointment? Would that man have chosen a child over an empire? I did not know. After 34 years of life, after building one of the largest real estate empires in the country, after making decisions that affected thousands of jobs and billions of dollars, I did not know who I was. I grabbed my coat and walked toward the elevator. I was going back to the sidewalk. I had no idea what I was going to say. The elevator ride down took 47 seconds. I counted every one of them. When the doors opened, I walked through the lobby without looking at anyone. The security guard called out a greeting. I did not respond. The receptionist asked if I needed anything. I kept walking. The revolving door pushed me out into the cold. Ellery was exactly where I had left her, still sitting against the stone foundation, still wrapped in that torn coat, still holding our daughter close to her body. I had disabled the exterior cameras before I came down. Whatever happened next, I did not want witnesses. My reflection appeared and disappeared in the glass doors behind me, a stranger in a $4,000 suit about to confront everything money could not fix. I stopped 3 feet away from her. Up close, the damage was worse than I had seen from the car. Her cheeks were hollow, her lips were cracked. Her hands trembled, even though she was trying to hide them beneath her sleeves. The autoimmune condition, it had gotten worse. Much worse. 7 years of fighting that disease alone. 7 years without proper treatment. 7 years of choosing between medication and food. Because of me. Ellery looked up. Our eyes met for the first time in 7 years. I watched emotions move across her face like weather. Surprise, fear, anger, hope, exhaustion, all of it in the space of 3 seconds. She pulled Rowan closer. Protective instinct. Ellery. Corbin. We stared at each other across a distance that had nothing to do with the 3 feet between us. Rowan looked up at her mother, then at me. "Mummy, is that the man from the tall building?" Ellery did not answer. "He looks sad," Rowan said. "Is he sad?" "Some people are very good at hiding how they feel," Ellery said quietly. I crouched down so I was closer to their level. The cold concrete bit through my pants. I did not care. "I did not know about her," I said. Ellery's jaw tightened. Would it have mattered? I opened my mouth to say yes, to say of course, to say everything would have been different, but I could not lie to her, not anymore. "I do not know," I said. "I want to believe it would have, but I do not know." Something flickered in her eyes. Not forgiveness, but maybe a small amount of respect for the honesty. Rowan squirmed out of her mother's arms. Before Ellery could stop her, she crossed the space between us and grabbed my leg again. "Daddy," she said. "Mummy has a picture of you. She showed me. She said you would come someday. She said you would find us." The word hit me like a fist to the chest. I looked at Ellery. Her eyes were wet. "She asked about her father," Ellery said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "She kept asking. I could not lie to her. So I showed her your picture. I told her that someday her daddy would find us." "Were you waiting for me?" Her expression hardened. "No, I was surviving. For her. Not for you. Never for you." Rowan tugged at my coat. "Daddy, can we go inside? Mommy is cold. Her hands shake when she is cold." I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. She had my eyes and my jawline. But she had her mother's smile. And her mother's kindness. 3 years old, and she was worried about her mother. 3 years old, and she was braver than I had ever been. There was a question in her eyes. A question she was too young to put into words. "Are you going to leave again?" I knelt down in front of her. The cold soaked through my knees. I did not care. "Yes," I said. "Let us go inside." I straightened up and offered my hand to Ellery. She stared at it like it was a snake. "I do not want your charity." "It is not charity." "Then what is it?" I held her gaze. "I do not know yet, but I would like a chance to figure it out." A long moment passed. The wind cut between us, sharp and bitter. Then Ellery took my hand. Her fingers were ice cold. They trembled against my palm. I helped her to her feet. She was lighter than I remembered. Too light. Months of missed meals. Months of giving everything to Rowan and keeping nothing for herself. "This does not mean I forgive you," she said. "I know. It does not mean I trust you." "I know. I am only doing this for her." "I know." We walked toward the revolving door. Rowan held my hand on one side and her mother's hand on the other. We entered the lobby together. Every head turned. Receptionists, security guards, executives waiting for the elevator. They all stared at the billionaire in the expensive suit walking hand in hand with a homeless woman and child. I did not care what they thought. Let them stare. Let them whisper. Let them wonder. The real battle had not even started yet. I brought them to my private floor. 52nd story. The penthouse office. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the entire city. A space designed to intimidate rivals and impress clients. Rowan was not intimidated. She ran from window to window, pressing her hands against the glass, looking down at the streets below. "Mummy, look, the cars are so tiny they look like toys." She touched everything. The leather chairs, the mahogany desk, the crystal paperweights that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her wonder was a knife in my chest. This should have been her world. She should have grown up surrounded by everything I could give her. Instead, she had grown up on the streets, and a paperweight was the most amazing thing she had ever seen. Ellery sat rigid in one of the chairs across from my desk. She would not take off her coat. She would not eat until Rowan ate first. She would not relax. I had food brought up. Sandwiches, fruit, juice boxes for Rowan. Rowan ate like she had not seen food in days. She probably had not. Ellery watched her daughter eat. Only when Rowan's plate was empty did Ellery reach for a sandwich. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold it. "What happened?" I asked. Ellery set the sandwich down. She looked at Rowan, who was now drawing on a legal pad I had given her. Crayons from the supply closet. She was drawing a house with a sun and flowers. "How much do you want to know?" "Everything." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she started talking. "I went back to Chicago after I left. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks later." She paused, took a breath. "I thought about telling you. I picked up the phone a dozen times, but then I would remember the look on your face in that conference room, the way you chose a deal over me, and I knew that if I told you, you would do one of two things. You would ignore it and pretend I did not exist, or you would throw money at the problem and pretend that made you a father." "Ellery." I was not done. I closed my mouth. I decided to do it alone. I worked through the pregnancy, doubles at the clinic, triples when I could get them. My condition made it high risk. The doctors told me to slow down. I could not afford to slow down. She looked at Rowan. The little girl was still drawing, humming to herself. "I almost lost her twice, once at 5 months, once at 7. Both times I was working when it happened. Both times I went back to work the next week because the bills did not stop coming." Her voice was flat. No self-pity, just facts. "Rowan was born healthy, 6 pounds, 4 ounces. I went back to nursing 3 weeks later. No family, no support system, just me and her. For 2 years I managed, barely. I found a clinic that let me bring her to work sometimes. I found a neighbor who watched her when I could not. I found ways to make it work." She stopped. Her hands were shaking again. "Then my condition flared, bad. I was hospitalized for 3 weeks. I almost died. By the time I got out, I had lost my job. My savings were gone. Medical bills took everything. The eviction happened 6 months later. I stayed with a co-worker for a while, then a shelter, then my car. Then the car was repossessed." The words hung in the air. "We have been on the street for 4 months, she said. "I keep Rowan fed by skipping my own meals. I keep her warm by giving her every blanket. I keep her safe by never sleeping." She looked at me with eyes that held no accusation, no anger, just exhaustion. "Why here?" I asked. "Why my building?" Her jaw tightened. "Because I ran out of options. Because I swallowed my pride for her. Not for you, for her. She deserves a father, even if that father is you." I sat with that for a long time. Rowan held up her drawing. "Look, Daddy, I drew our house. It has a big yard and a dog and flowers." She had drawn 3 stick figures standing in front of the house. A tall one, a medium one, a small one, a family. I could not speak. Ellery watched me look at the drawing. "I want to help," I finally said. She laughed. There was no humor in it. "I've heard that before, from men in suits who mean it for a week. Then they get bored or busy or distracted, and the help disappears, and you are left worse off than before because you let yourself hope." She leaned forward. "So I'm going to ask you one time, Corbin, and I want the truth. Are you going to show up? Not once, not when it is convenient, every day, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard." I looked at Rowan, then at Ellery, then at the drawing of the house with 3 stick figures. "Yes," I said. "Words are easy." "I know. Prove it. If Ellery's story just punched you in the gut, you are not alone. Do me a favor. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? This story is not over. I arranged a hotel suite that night, not the penthouse. Ellery refused the penthouse. She said it would make Rowan think this was normal. That life came with marble floors and room service and views of the skyline. So I booked a regular suite, 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, nice enough to be comfortable, modest enough that Ellery did not feel like a charity case. She accepted what Rowan needed: new clothes for the girl, a proper meal, a warm bath, a soft bed. Everything else she refused. I will wear what I have. Ellery, your coat is held together with tape. Then I will find a new one myself when I can afford it. I did not push, not yet. I visited that evening after Rowan was asleep. Ellery met me at the door. She did not invite me in. We talked in the hallway. Quiet voices. The hum of the ice machine down the hall. She asked about you before bed, Ellery said. She wanted to know if you were coming back tomorrow. What did you tell her? I told her I did not know. That hurt more than I expected. I will be back tomorrow, I said. I will be back every day. Words. I know. She leaned against the doorframe. Without the adrenaline of the day, she looked even more exhausted. The tremor in her hands was constant now. I do not trust you, she said. You chose money over me when I was sick. You chose a deal over being there when I needed you most. Why should I believe you will not do it again? I had no good answer. Because she exists, I said. Because Rowan changes everything. I changed everything too, once, and you still left. I absorbed the blow. I did not argue. I did not defend myself. For the first time in 7 years, I sat with the weight of what I had done without trying to rationalize it. You are right, I said. I have no defense. I can only show you, over time, through actions. She studied my face for a long moment. We will see, she said. Then she closed the door. I stood in that hallway for a long time before I left. The next morning, the complication arrived. My PR team called at 7. Paparazzi photos had surfaced. Corbin Mathers, escorting a homeless woman and child into Cresswell Tower. The images were everywhere. Tabloid headline, Cresswell's secret family. Social media was on fire. Speculation, rumors, anonymous sources claiming to have inside information. My board of directors called an emergency meeting for that afternoon. I sat at my desk and stared at the photos on my computer screen. Ellery's face was visible in one of them. Rowan was looking up at me with those green eyes. My phone rang. Victoria Ashford, chief adversary on the board, the woman who had been waiting years for me to make a mistake. Corbin, she said, we need to talk. The meeting is at 3. This cannot wait until 3. I met her in a conference room an hour later. She was already seated when I arrived, perfectly composed, perfectly dressed, perfectly dangerous. This is a liability, she said without preamble. She slid a folder across the table. Stock projections, PR risk assessments, brand damage estimates. The market responds to stability, she continued. A secret homeless family is not stability, it is chaos, it is scandal, it is ammunition for every competitor who wants to see us fail. She is not a liability. She is the mother of my daughter. Your daughter. Victoria raised an eyebrow. A daughter you did not know existed until yesterday. A daughter whose mother has every reason to destroy you publicly. Do you understand the exposure here? I understood. I understood perfectly. What do you want, Victoria? I want this handled, quietly. The woman and the child disappear from public view. You make a private arrangement, generous but discreet. The story dies. And if I refuse? She smiled. It did not reach her eyes. Then the board will act. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our shareholders. We cannot allow personal drama to damage the company. I looked at the folder. The numbers were real. The risk was real. Everything she said made sense from a business perspective. This was the same choice. The empire versus the family. Glass and steel versus flesh and blood. But this time, I hesitated for different reasons. If I lost the company, I lost the resources to help Ellery and Rowan, the money for her medical treatment, the stability Rowan needed, everything I could provide. The irony was suffocating. I needed the empire to save the family I had destroyed for the empire. Victoria stood up. You have 48 hours, she said. Handle this, or the board will. She walked out. I sat alone in that conference room for a long time. I spent the night before the board meeting in the hotel suite. Not sleeping, just watching. Rowan was curled up in the big bed, buried under blankets, clutching a stuffed rabbit that Ellery had managed to keep through everything. Her face was peaceful. No fear, no hunger. Just a 3-year-old girl dreaming whatever 3-year-old girls dream about. I studied her face in the dim light. My eyes, my jawline, my stubborn shoulders, Ellery's smile, Ellery's kindness, Ellery's courage. This was my daughter. This was what I had almost thrown away. This was what I had spent 7 years not knowing existed. I heard movement behind me. Ellery. She walked into the room and stopped when she saw me sitting there. How long have you been here? A few hours. She sat down in the chair across from me. We watched Rowan sleep together. The silence between us was different now. Less hostile, more honest. The board meeting is tomorrow, I said. I know. They want you to disappear. They want me to make you go away quietly. She did not react. Are you going to? No. Why not? I thought about the question. There were a lot of answers I could give. Because it was wrong. Because she deserved better. Because I owed her. But the real answer was simpler than that. Because I am tired of being the man who runs away. Ellery was quiet for a long moment. You do not owe me anything, she finally said. I stopped expecting anything from you a long time ago. But you owe her everything. She nodded toward Rowan. Everything you could not give me, you give to her. Everything you failed to be for me, you become for her. That is the only thing I care about. I nodded. I understand. We sat in silence until the sun came up. The boardroom filled at 9 o'clock sharp. 12 directors around a mahogany table. Crystal water glasses. Leather chairs. The smell of expensive coffee and quiet power. Victoria Ashford sat directly across from me. She had prepared a motion to censure my leadership and demand that my personal situation be resolved. Resolved meant Ellery and Rowan disappearing from public view. Resolved meant pretending they did not exist. She presented her case efficiently. Stock projections, PR analysis, shareholder confidence metrics, brand damage estimates. Everything quantified, everything reduced to numbers on a spreadsheet. The other directors listened. Some nodded. Some avoided my eyes. Some were clearly already on Victoria's side. When she finished, she looked at me. The floor is yours, Corbin. I stood up. I thought about Ellery folding sheets in a laundromat, about a twist-tie ring on her finger, about a child's voice saying Daddy on a frozen sidewalk, about a note pinned to a blue shirt. Remember who you were. I built this company by being ruthless, I said. I cut away anything that made me vulnerable. I sacrificed relationships. I sacrificed my health. I sacrificed the only woman I ever loved. I looked around the table. I became my father, cold, calculating, alone. I told myself that was the price of success. I told myself that was what strength looked like. Victoria shifted in her seat. This was not the defense she had expected. My father died alone in his penthouse, no friends, no family. No one who would miss him. He left his empire to a son he had disowned because his pride would not let a stranger take what he built. Even from the grave, his image mattered more than his people. I paused. I will not repeat that mistake. The room was silent. Ellery Vance is the mother of my daughter. My daughter's name is Rowan. She is 3 years old. She has been sleeping on the streets of this city because I was too busy building this company to be a human being. I looked directly at Victoria. If that costs me this chair, so be it, but I will not hide them. I will not erase them. I will not pretend they do not exist so our stock price can tick up 2 points. I sat down. I am done building empires on lies. Silence. Victoria's jaw was tight. She had not anticipated this. She had expected me to negotiate, to compromise, to protect my position at any cost. She cleared her throat. I call for a vote of no confidence in Corbin Mather's leadership. The motion was seconded. 12 directors. Each one had to choose. Victoria voted yes. 3 others followed her. 4 votes against me. Then Gerald Marsh spoke. Gerald was 82 years old. He had served on this board since my father founded the company. He had watched Augustine Cresswell build an empire, and destroy everyone who loved him in the process. I vote no, Gerald said. His voice was thin but steady. Augustin would have hidden them. He would have paid them off and buried the story and gone back to making money. I am glad his son is not his father. The vote continued. When it was finished, Victoria had 6 votes. I had 6. The motion failed. Not a victory, not a mandate, just survival. But survival was enough. Victoria gathered her papers. Her face was composed, but I could see the anger beneath it. "This is not over," she said quietly. "I know." She walked out. I sat alone in the boardroom for a long time. Then I drove to the hotel. I had something to tell Ellery. She was waiting for me when I arrived. Rowan was at the small table, colouring in a book we had bought her the day before. She looked up when I walked in and waved with a purple crayon in her hand. "Daddy, I drew a picture for you. Show me later, sweetheart. I need to talk to your mum first." Ellery followed me onto the small balcony. We stood in the cold, looking out at the city. "What happened?" she asked. "They tried to vote me out. They failed, barely. So you still have your company?" "Yes." "And us?" I turned to face her. "I stood up for you, in front of all of them. I told them who you were, who Rowan was. I told them I would not hide you." She searched my face, looking for the lie, looking for the catch. "Why?" "Because you deserved it 7 years ago, and I was too weak to give it to you then." She was quiet for a long time. "You stood up for us," she finally said. "I stood up for the truth." Same thing. The wind cut between us. Neither of us moved. "I do not know what happens next," I said. "I am not asking you to move in with me. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am not asking for anything except a chance." "A chance to do what?" "To prove that I can be different, to show Rowan that her father is someone worth knowing, to show you that the man you fell in love with is still in here somewhere." She stared at me for a long moment. "What do you need?" I asked. "Tell me what you need, and I will make it happen." Her answer was simple. "Time, medical care, a safe place for Rowan, and for you to show up, not once, not when it is convenient, every day, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard." Done. Words are easy. I know. Watch my actions. I found Ellery an apartment 2 weeks later. Not a penthouse. Not charity. A modest 2-bedroom in a decent neighborhood with good schools nearby. She insisted on paying rent once she was working again. I agreed. Her medical treatment resumed. A specialist I found through the company's network. Good days and bad days. I learned her medication schedule. I drove her to appointments. I sat in waiting rooms and read magazines I did not care about while she met with doctors. Rowan started preschool. A small place with patient teachers and a big playground. I picked her up on Tuesdays and Thursdays. She introduced me to everyone. "This is my daddy," she told her teacher. "He was lost for a long time, but he found us." The teacher looked at me with curious eyes. I just smiled and took Rowan's hand. Ellery and I fought. A lot. Old wounds do not heal because you want them to. 7 years of pain does not disappear in 7 weeks. She had nightmares about being back on the street. I had nightmares about that phone call from Singapore. Some nights she would not look at me. Some nights I did not know what to say. But we kept showing up. That was the difference. We kept showing up. Slowly, something began to grow. Not the reckless love of our 20s, not the desperate passion that had burned through those laundromat nights. Something harder, something tested, something that knew what it had cost and chose to exist anyway. 6 months later, I was sitting in my office when Mercer knocked on the door. "Sir, the Henderson meeting has been moved up. They can only do 3 o'clock today." I looked at my calendar. 3 o'clock. Rowan's preschool recital. "What is the conflict?" Mercer asked. "My daughter has a recital." Mercer hesitated. "Sir, the Henderson deal is worth—" "I know what it is worth." I stood up and put on my coat. "Cancel the meeting." "Sir, the client flew in from—" "Then he can fly back, or he can wait." My daughter will not wait. I walked past Mercer and headed for the elevator. I arrived at the preschool 20 minutes early. The auditorium was small, folding chairs arranged in uneven rows, paper decorations taped to the walls, the smell of juice boxes and finger paint. I found a tiny chair in the third row and sat down. My knees came up almost to my chest. A mother next to me tried not to laugh. Ellery was already there, 2 rows ahead. She turned when I walked in. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then she smiled. Not a big smile. Not forgiveness. Not a promise that everything was healed. Just acknowledgement. You showed up. I nodded. The lights dimmed. The curtain opened. 15 3-year-olds walked onto the stage in matching t-shirts, looking terrified and excited in equal measure. Rowan spotted me in the audience. Her face lit up. She waved so hard she nearly fell over. I waved back. The music started. The children began to sing. Rowan forgot half the words. She was completely off-key. She kept looking at me instead of the teacher leading the song. It was the most important performance I had ever attended. After the recital, Rowan ran to me and threw her arms around my neck. "Did you see me, Daddy? Did you see me sing?" "I saw everything, sweetheart. You were amazing." Ellery walked over. She stood beside me, watching our daughter bounce with excitement. "You cancelled something important," she said quietly. "Nothing is more important than this." She looked at me for a long time. Something shifted in her eyes. Something that had been locked away for 7 years. "I believe you," she said. We walked out of the preschool together, Rowan between us, holding both our hands. I built an empire of glass and steel and called it success. I nearly lost the only empire that mattered, the one made of bedtime stories and Tuesday pickups and a woman brave enough to survive what I did to her. My father left me a company. My daughter left me something worth more, a reason to be the man I should have been all along. That is the story. A man who had everything except what mattered. A woman who had nothing except what mattered most. And a little girl who brought them both back from the edge. Sometimes the empires we build are just walls we hide behind. And sometimes the bravest thing a powerful man can do is admit he was wrong, show up, and stay. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between ambition and the people you love? What did you choose? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. If this story meant something to you, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you have not already, and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss what comes next. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Whether you are new or you have been with me from the beginning, I appreciate you. And if you think this story was intense, wait until you hear what happens when a woman discovers her husband has been living a double life for 15 years. The truth she uncovers will change everything. I will see you in the next one.